Hello, everybody, and welcome to CCI Live.
If you said everybody, not buddy. I thought you said hello, buddy. Like, what are we calling buddy?
Oh wait, we have a different look on our screen.
That's what I've been saying too.
The names at the bottom of each of our.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see that? Looks
Oh,
different.
look it. Yeah.
Restream has had updates, y'all.
Oh, okay.
We can adjust that.
Exciting, I know.
I kind of like
Don't all panic at once. We'll be okay, I promise.
it.
No panicking.
All right, so before we get started, those of you out there watching, friendly reminder to please join in the conversation. We want to hear from you. We are monitoring that chat, so please let us know what's going on, what you're thinking, how are things? Tell us all of it. We want to know. So that is all. Also, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Please, please, please. Subscribe to our channel. Now, I'm done with all that stuff. Your turn, everybody. What is our topic? We had a big conversation about it before we got started, so I know you guys know what it is. So
We are finishing the Leadership 101 series. We are talking about Leadership Coaching 101. If you're doing this, you might be a terrible leader. Or the signs that you are a bad, sucky leader. And then we'll probably round it off by ways you can fix that and become a good leader.
probably. And
Probably, I love that.
Most likely.
Just spend like 45 minutes raining on them and then just 15 minutes potentially going over solutions. I love it.
Who is so? Let's go ahead and as we go into this, let's talk about. Well, how do we want to do this?
Who is clicky clacking?
Sorry, it's me.
Here's my thought.
Jeez.
But I'm
What's
on a
gonna-
headset. I don't know how you could hear it. That doesn't make any sense.
What
It
do you-
is loud. It is loud.
It's your microphone that's picking it up, not your headset.
Yeah, but this is nowhere near me typing.
Pointed right at your keyboard.
I don't know.
Ridiculous.
But
We have
to
heavy
Anthony's
fingers.
question,
We can hear it.
do we have a working definition of good leadership first to compare to bad leadership?
Well, Jerome is trying to say something, but he's.
I was going to say, you could probably get a good idea of what we think about that if you watch the last few lives that we've done. We embellish a little bit on that.
Yeah.
We talked about ethical leadership as being a quality of a good leader. Thinking ethically, if we're going back. We also talk about good leaders come from good followers. You need to know how to follow to know what to expect as a good leader. Going back a little bit further, let's see. That was it. I can't figure out what our... Oh, having a vision. Being a visionary leader and having a vision for the future can make you a good leader.
Hmm.
So those are some qualities. Oh, look. We're
What?
showing off something. We're showing off Restream.
What?
Wasn't me. I have no idea what's going on. Restream is buggy, I think, right now.
Brooke's doing something in the background. Those are some of the qualities of a good leader. Does anybody else has some qualities that maybe we discussed before about what makes a good leader?
Communication.
I think communication's a big one.
Serving a greater good. I mean, like a greater good, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. That's where, if you're not careful, even vision can turn you into a toxic leader who is Adolf Hitler.
Ooh,
Definitely toxic.
yeah.
But a visionary nonetheless. Not the greatest vision, but we all know. Thankfully, that is a good lesson that we can learn on what not to do in the realm of leadership.
In the first 5 minutes, we're jumping right into Adolf
into
Hitler.
Hitler.
That's what was happening.
I think we're using him as our baseline.
A baseline for- A
Just, you know,
baseline for visionary gone bad. That's all.
barely touched our toe in the water, and we're just already we're going there. Just
Just dive in.
now, he was an effective leader. I mean, in the sense that
Well,
I'm
that's
not
also
saying
the
he was
media
good,
leader.
but he did get a lot of people to follow him.
Full disclosure, we are not here saying that Adolf
No.
Hitler was at all a great leader.
At
We wanna
all.
make that crystal
No.
clear.
Not one
At all.
iota.
Now, is this a topic I play devil's advocate on? Or
No, don't do it.
No,
Okay, just
absolutely
making.
not.
I also don't think he's a good leader.
So bringing up the conversation, so this kind of brings up something that we talked about before this, and sort of like when we're talking about good leaders and bad leaders and things of that nature, how we have done a topic in the past about toxic leadership and how this topic is different. And Anthony, you explained it beautifully. Go ahead and you talk about
I don't
that.
know. I don't think I ever explained anything beautifully, but to put it simply, the difference between I may think of it the difference between a toxic leader and a non-effective leader. How about that? Is that toxic leadership are more about your own personality traits and maybe your toxic personality traits coming to the forefront and getting in the way of your leadership. And you might be toxic, but you still might be a good leader and you might be effective leader, but people might not like working with you.
Mm.
The difference, and you might be an effective leader you might be a non-toxic leader. You might be empathetic. People might really enjoy being around you, but you might not be a good leader for a variety of reasons. And I think this is a good jumping point into what are the qualities of a bad leader. I want to start with one on this was from a Forbes list that somebody posted is being indecisive. And that's how you can sort of illustrate. You can imagine somebody who's very positive, non-toxic, they're easy to communicate with, but they are just indecisive and wishy-washy and they can't make a decision.
That would be awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That would be awful.
It's pretty counter to even the word leader for a moment. How can you be a leader if you're not decisively leading in a particular direction? So love that point, Anthony.
And it could just be like instead of being wishy-washy, you're just avoiding commitments or courses of action. Like you just kind of want to keep things the way they are, and you're not willing to risk it and commit to any sort of endeavor or having any sort of like long-term goals. Can be a form of indecisiveness.
I think it's worse to be like, oh, let's do this, and then to like pivot and change your mind, like oh no, like this, oh maybe this, maybe like that could be so scary.
I do think part of, I agree with all that you said, Anthony, but I think a key word that you utilized is be willing to risk, but not stupidly, meaning not investigate, not doing the research behind things, making sure as best as possible that risk is an educated guess for you and your team. I think risk is a big part. Mm-hmm.
I think that sort of gets into maybe when we think of coaches as leaders and like the people who are leading their own like business endeavor.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I was saying as the coach as leader and the people who are going into their own solo entrepreneurship. I think we see that a lot with indecisiveness when we first started.
Anthony, your audio is kind of funky.
Yeah, your audio's like cutting in and out.
It's like cutting in and out. It's like there and then not there.
Just get it together.
Your guys' headphones are acting up.
That's better. Now that's better. Yeah.
Way better.
Sound needs to be decisive.
You guys can see my microphone now. What I was saying was, I think we see that a lot with the new business owners and the entrepreneurs and the new people who are becoming coaches. Is sometimes there is a analysis paralysis or fear of making a move. At least what I've seen in coach so far. And sometimes I just want to tell them, I don't tell them this, but sometimes I just want to tell them, just make a decision. Just choose to do something, even if it's not the most well-researched, and even if you don't know all the variables, because sometimes you can't know all the variables, just find a course of action and go with it, and then see where it takes you. because there's something to learn in that process as well that you can't really rationalize or think out until you actually start doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think that applies to leaders across the board,
Yeah.
not just coaches.
Get into experiment mode and not
Yep.
I mean, you can hope that it's going to be successful, but until you actually start experimenting with different opportunities, you just never know what's going to work.
Mhm.
Yep.
think part of it
Experiment
also-
and collect data.
Yeah. And stop waiting for permission or for someone else to co-sign on your plan of action. Because what might have worked for the last coach or might not work for you, or vice versa. Because you've got different niches, different markets, different reasons why you're even getting into business. So I know this is kind of starting to descend into business decisions and all that and what have you, but going back to leadership, it's all about being decisive and making a choice. Like
So
I
sort
choose
of-
to stop right there.
Sort of on the other end of the spectrum, though, is okay, we want you to be decisive as a leader, but what about being rigid?
What about it?
Like being, very, very rigid in your choices, sort of unwilling to waver or adapt.
Once
or-
I make a decision, I am never going to deviate from my course.
Yeah,
Like I'm being sort of stubborn in my decision making.
it's not
I think-
something great.
I think there are places for rigidity and there are places to adapt, because there are some protocols that are put in place to keep people safe, to keep things profitable. None of that should be if you want to keep a business afloat. For example, rigidity in paying and putting money aside for quarterly taxes. Otherwise, Uncle Sam's going to come after you. That's something you want to be rigid about. How you go about making that money, of course, as long as you're not breaking the law or anything like that, that can be flexed, that can be adjusted. But the problem is when people find things that work for them, it's very hard to break away from that because this is work. This is work. Why look for something else if something has been working, even at an infinitesimal amount? Like people would rather ride the bus till the wheels fall off before they're like, maybe we should get another bus. And that's where rigidity can be toxic in that sense.
Mhm. Well, sometimes all you need to do is replace the wheel too.
Replace a wheel? Nah, I want to keep driving that wheel. I want to keep driving that bad boy.
All right. So, what are some other qualities of a bad leader?
I mean, I will also say that like rigidity thing and that unwillingness to adapt, it kind of goes back to the blockbuster Netflix, right?
Mhm.
And other things of that nature, or AOL is another example of that. Is that as companies and things are coming in with disruptive sort of brand new technology, brand new options, brand new ways of doing things, I am too stuck in my ways of doing things the way that has always worked. It leaves an opportunity for somebody to come in and cut your legs out, essentially, because your head's just not on swivel. And next thing you know, Netflix swoops in and creates a something that I no longer have to leave my house to go watch TV and watch movies, where I used to have to go down to the Blockbuster. And I think there's one Blockbuster store left in operation, one and only one. So,
And in addition, look at Zoom and Skype. Zoom took off, Skype died.
Mm.
Same thing.
What about Redbox? Do we still have those around?
yeah, they're still there. I see them on
That's a
occasion.
good question.
Anywhere I've seen a red box, I've been kind of scared to approach it.
Not the safest of areas, but they still exist. There's one down.
It's because it's kind of like an ATM, but it's like not as safe because like they don't have like the enclosed box and you don't have the mirror to like look behind you.
My gosh.
That's
Like if you had an
That's
ATM
fair.
next to a drugstore, It's very frightening.
It's fair.
There's definitely one in front of our CVS down here. So
Same.
And the people who hang out in front of that CVS, I don't want to be next to them at the Red Box. So
now that we okay, so what were we moving on to another trait?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lack of consideration for your team. That could make you a toxic leader.
Yeah.
But does it make you a bad leader?
It can. It very well can, because through that it can lead to a rigidity where you look at things only your own way without really consulting other people. And little backstory, I had a leadership experience, and I actually shared this in a newsletter where someone told me Gozo sucks because he thinks he's better than everyone else. Now, in that space, I did not think I was better than anyone else. If anything, my only concern was about pulling my weight. But in that drive to pull my weight, I also didn't think about anyone else either. Not like I was rude and just an obstinate jerk or anything. I just didn't show any curiosity or interest in them. So it's easy for people to create that narrative that says, oh, he thinks he's better than everyone else because I didn't make any touch points or connections with them. So in that, it's imperative that you have a pulse on the people who are around you, because we're creatures who tell stories. That's one of the things that separate us from our other four-legged friends. Create those stories, create the narratives. So if you're, as a leader, not intentionally creating a narrative that shows that you care, at least at some point, don't be surprised if another not so positive narrative comes out about you. That's what I'll share there.
The argument to that is though, like, well, I don't care what people think of me. But that
Sure
being
you
said,
don't.
Yeah,
it
Sure
makes it
you-
hard. It makes it hard to have a team.
Well,
that
it does.
wants-
It totally does. I mean, can you imagine not having someone? I mean, I think that's what has allowed many businesses to adapt today, is because they have been coached into, especially emotional intelligence concepts that allow that growth of the company culture to take hold, and that allowed the growth to happen within the parameter of making more money and getting more things done and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I think in like as I follow the different stocks of different businesses,
Yeah.
it seems like there is a different correlation when in terms of consideration of the team. What I mean is that what I often see is that what the team wants and what shareholders want are often opposed, and a leader who shows a lack of consideration for their team, but a stronger consideration from the shareholders, they'll, lay off thousands of their workforce and their shares, go up, makes the shareholders happy, and they see that as an effective leader or a good leader. And you're cutting, the fat off of a company. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think other people or other stakeholders might have a different opinion on that.
Wouldn't call it leadership at all. Like, you're just firing people. Like, how is that leading?
Well, it is kind of leadership in a way, because if it's a company that's owned by the shareholders, they get to determine to a certain degree who the leader is. And, when it comes time to select a new CEO or oust a CEO, those shareholders get a say in that.
I wouldn't call it leadership, though. That's just like,
that sounds like
holding your
management.
position. Like, that's just like, I'm
Yeah, that's-
holding my position. Like, I don't, but that being said, I think one thing to consider that has been mentioned in that sense of like being able to know or how your team is doing. I mean, burnout. Like, if we're not connected to our team, we could be working them to the point of burnout. And if you're not fostering a sense of like, passion or wanting to go above and beyond and be proactive, I think that makes everything harder. So I think that it is important to be in touch with your team and thinking about your team as you are leading. I think it's critical, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, mutiny exists for a reason, people. Come on now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to add something to that might help people. For those who are listening, look up leader member exchange, or LMX theory, which really talks about creating a deeper relationship between the leader and the follower. So to the point where there's a mutual, how do I put this? A mutual investment and trust within each other. And as I've read about that theory, it all boils down to leaders want to get to a place where the interactions between the followers are all quality. So everyone feels like what that theory calls are in the in group and not the out group where they don't go above and beyond. So LMX, or leader member exchange theory.
All right.
Also, anytime we say leader, you can kind of just interchange it with the word coach.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't doing these things as a coach, you're probably a terrible coach. Sorry to say.
Right. You don't have genuine care for the people that you're coaching.
Like if you don't have, the ability to empathize with them and connect with them, and know what they are feeling and going through, or identify it at least, we're gonna have some problems. If you are, firing all of your clients for your shareholders.
Dang.
So just something to keep in mind as we go through this list. What do we have up next? What else would make us a terrible leader?
Honestly,
Avoiding confrontation.
Mm.
Ooh.
So
So
go
could
on.
that be people pleasing, and like just being very passive and submissive and avoiding all conflict? Yeah. Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's just not going to be effective.
No.
Because
Or
at
does
some
it-
point, something's going to happen. Someone's going to, and we're going to have a hard conversation, and that's going to happen, and that's part of the job, right? And you're not going to make everybody happy. My cat is not making me happy right now.
I think part of
That's how it is.
going on. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna say, having those hard conversations are never fun for anyone, yet they still have to be had.
Mm-hmm. Unless you like that kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't like that kind of stuff either. It's just probably important for all of us to just check our own narratives around conflict. It's like, avoiding conflict. Even that word can be charged as like, ooh, I don't want any conflict.
Right.
One of the things that I learned from a dear friend of mine was just really reframing it, not necessarily conflict, but I don't know. I don't remember exactly what the word is, but the central tenet of it is like, it's not about the conflict, it's about the communication therein. So communication practice, if you will. I don't remember exactly what it is, but
yeah, I love that. So reframing conflict to something along the lines of like direct communication. It's not conflict, it's just direct communication. And then
right.
It feels a lot less scary or intimidating, or I love
I would
that.
like to add on, sometimes conflict and confrontation just is conflict and confrontation. And I'm going to add, I like it because it's one of the only, there might be other ways, but it's one of the first ways that comes to mind that's like where you truly get to test what kind of leader you are, where your ethics are, what your values are, where you stand on certain positions, in a way where, like, it's easy to just say who you are, but when you're tested like that in a confrontation, whether it's a verbal confrontation or otherwise, you get to see who you really are. I can think of one just off the top of my head, like our, refund policies and things like that. Sometimes conflicts occur on our policies, or just student policies. Let's just say that. sometimes conflicts happen with our student policies, and we seem to take a stance where, like, it's at our discretion. We can, make exceptions for things that are obviously outside of the normal case, but other times we have to take a stand on principle based on, ICF ethics or certain standards that we uphold ourselves to. And if we avoided those conflicts altogether, what's the point of having those standards in the first place?
Not only that, but how is it fair? Like, if I am, like, this is when I get, like, if I have two people, right, and they are both asking for a refund, but one of them's being really nice about it, one of them's being a real jerk about it, right? It's not fair for me to bend to the real jerk and give break my policy, and then not break my policy for the person that's being kind and nice. Like, but it's not fair. Like, it's not cool. So it's better to uphold a standard across the board. I think it's a much more fair approach to doing business and policies. And I'm sorry to anybody out there listening that doesn't agree with that, but it's one of the things I always say is, like, what makes you the exception? Like, why are you the exception right now? Can you tell me why you are better than the last person that asked for a refund? And they aren't, essentially. Just, and I mean, people don't like hearing that. But I mean, of course, there are extreme circumstances where exceptions are made, but most of the time, we're not talking extreme circumstances. We're talking,
So I think, we were bringing up rigidity earlier, and we're talking about boundaries now. How as we're supposed to be talking about bad leaders, and I'm going into a good leader. How is a good leader setting that boundary so that they don't become a bad leader, like being wishy-washy, like you were talking about, Brooke? Having this policy be okay here and not here. I mean, you have to have a solid policy, right?
I think having a firm foundation with where you stand that is enforced without being a jerk about it. Because when you're dealing with people as a whole, you can be robotic. You can read things that are listed on the website, and people are going to be like, well, I could read that. Why are you reading to me? Rather than, or instead, you can just speak with them in the way that you can be heard, they're going to hear you, and make it known, like, it's not personal, it's business. It sounds cliche, but at the end of the day, we're not upholding this boundary or putting this policy in place to make your life miserable.
Yes. This is where leading with ethics becomes important, and knowing what the ethics are for you, and knowing, okay, the refund policy exists for this reason. I uphold it to be fair, and fairness means this to me as a leader. This is what fair is to me, and defining that beforehand, like having that clear definition, because if I'm making exceptions from a unconscious bias, what can happen and to one group of people and not another group of people, and maybe I don't even realize it, that could be something that's really becomes a real problem later, right? So if I am somebody that for whatever reason I am making exceptions to women that look like me, and I'm letting them swing by, right, fly by under the radar, and anybody that doesn't, and it might be a completely unconscious bias, it's that I connect and empathize with this person because they are like me. But that is later going to be a serious problem if it starts to arise. So it's stepping back and going, I'm going to create a policy. I'm going to be fair and equal in this policy. I'm doing this because equality is important to me. And having that moral connection, that ethical connection to the reason that you are doing the things you do. And that's when it becomes important. And that's when this idea of ethical leadership, I think, becomes becomes important, because it extends beyond I'm just being a good person, but I am upholding policies that we have placed in this company because there's an ethical basis for me to uphold these policies and uphold them fairly across the board. If that,
no,
makes sense.
It's bigger than just the transactional conversation you and I are having, but for the collective good of the organization, the people we work for, and the people who are going to continue to buy from us. And you can apply that towards quite literally anything. Coaches, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a coach that is treating clients differently, you know, giving some a ton of reschedules without a problem and others upholding that firm, whatever's in the agreement. I mean, yeah, it definitely applies to coaches.
I was a lot softer with my coaching clients in the beginning. And then somebody taught me a lesson.
Well, let's hear the lesson.
Yeah.
Like the client did or someone else did?
No, it was the client. They would schedule and then never show up. And then I would, you know, communicate with them and they go, oh, da, 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 whatever the sob story was. And they did that a few times. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm the one. This is my responsibility, not theirs. This is my responsibility on how to uphold a cancellation policy and what that means. The boundary I was being wishy-washy with had to become a more firm boundary so that I would not be taken advantage of, because or other clients that couldn't get in to see me because they had scheduled during that time. So it became unfair to other people that potentially were clients, not only to myself, but to them and my time. You know, while I always had something I could do, that's not the point. I had to learn, you know, a boundary is set for a reason, and that setting, it helps me be accountable to all my clients, not just that wishy-washy person.
So, and to circle into something Jen and we discussed earlier, this becomes one of those spaces where, yes, you're going to learn along the way, but having a space where you can explore, making a space where you can explore the emotional relevance behind the decisions that you're making, the ethical relevance behind the policies you are setting, things like that, becomes really important for you as a leader. This is where, and as a coach. So, you know, this is where that space where coaching could be something that's very beneficial to somebody who is a leader, because it would allow a leader to have a space where they can explore the motivations behind the decisions they are making, and the reasons it might be they might be experiencing cognitive dissonance, or, you know, having problems or things of that nature. And that's, these kind of things is a great space for, not to like sell for coaches, but absolutely a good reason, because it's one thing to just act because, but it's another thing to know the reasons behind what you're doing. And I think this plays into this concept of visionary leadership a bit as well. Which is a double-edged sword too, though. So, but what's interesting too, I could see this as a sneaky way, right? This is a very sneaky way. Even Lisa experienced it to some degree, right? Where okay, I'm doing this and it might actually be bad. It might actually not be good. I feel like I'm being kind and helpful. I'm avoiding that confrontation. I'm being people pleasing. I'm being accommodating, and that feels good in the moment. But in the long run, it could be something that is making your leadership and even your coaching practice not so great. So,
yeah, winning the battle but losing the war.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfectly said.
Yeah.
What else? What else?
I'm not even sure if it's winning the battle, to be fair.
Yeah.
Well, you're winning a battle of not having immediate conflict in front of you, and everyone has their own perspective on what that means. It's like, I've avoided the conflict.
But even in avoiding the conflict, you have stress around it.
Some people do. Other people are like, I ain't dealing with that. Like, I ain't got time for that. Not me, not mine, until it It's crazy. I'm not saying people are crazy. Like, it's just crazy to me how, because I'm the same way too. Like, if I put something out, I'm gonna feel that. But people just have that ability to just compartmentalize so well, and in the sense, I kind of envy them in that way, because it's like, you're not feeling this. Like, you not feeling what I'm feeling.
I think it's a good way of, like, when we do that. Gosh, what is that graph that we use to decide what is like an urgent matter to attend to, and what's
The Eisenhower.
Yeah, the Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's good that to not always be so confrontational and be so willing to engage in confrontation like that, because sometimes you don't have to. You just put it in the not urgent. Someone else can do it. It could be done at a later time. You have more important things to focus on. And I've worked with people before who were supervisors. At every moment that conflict could be had, we were in the thick of it, and it would get in the way of the other more important things. And this is my security guard job, so it meant actual getting in people's faces and being in conflict with them, where you didn't need to. You could just let some things go to focus on the actual important tasks. So we're not saying, don't always avoid confrontation. We're not saying don't always confront every little slight and every little issue head on. You can, use your best discretion and figure out what is worth the time spending on.
Man, that just makes me want to totally I just want to dive into the psychology of the person that is running the security thing and jumping into every conflict. I'm like, it's like red flags. I just see them flying by right now.
Well,
I have so many stories about that place.
It's like a new person learning a new skill, and they think that's what they have to do every time to rectify a situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think she just liked fighting people, but
I know.
That also makes someone a bad leader, like always wanting to fight. Everything needs to be a fight.
Yeah. When I worked at Knox, there was a group of people, there was a group of techs, they were the techs, and anytime there was any kind of scuffle or fight, during, and they would fly, bolt there. It's like, dudes, it's not your job. Back up. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Are you bored? Clearly you're bored. You need something to do.
They're the Power Rangers or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's people who are very combative, right? Is that what we're talking about? People who are just constantly instigating or trying to,
Talk about a way to be a bad leader. That. Have you ever had those where it's man, and that's that is a space they have set up for themselves because it has worked for them, right? I'm gonna argue with everything you say. I feel
probably some people have parents who are like that. Where my parents not so much, but I know people with parents who the moment that there's some sort of maybe disagreement, it's a fight. It's a struggle for power.
It feels very micromanagey.
or they might just be afraid of being taken advantage of, so they put on this tough persona so people know, oh, let's not mess with this person.
Yeah.
But it ain't even that deep.
I see it's a big protective shell they put on, and it's not a good space. Not a good space. It's not a space for people to thrive in my opinion. It's a space maybe for that person to do whatever they want and not have comfort, not have to deal with anybody else's opinions and things. But it's just not it does not foster communication at all. So
leading into that, you asked earlier, Brooke, what else would make someone a bad or a toxic leader? I've heard this before, being a seagull. And you're like, what? Being a seagull?
Yeah,
flying in, open on you, and then flying away.
Flying in,
and pooping metaphorical for coming in, only to deliver the bad news, and then flying away again.
Yeah.
I like seagulls, man. They get a bad rap. They do steal your food. They do poop on you, and they do give no Fs. as it were.
Okay, so what's the good part?
You stealing my food, you
That's
don't
why
have
I
to
kind
see
of
me.
that's why I
You
kind of
don't
like
talk.
them, because they're kind of like what, like we just do what we want.
Yeah, you don't have to see me. What you
We're
have
not,
to do?
we're not scared of anything. Like that's why it kind of like they've got this like balls to the wall, we don't give a crap attitude. It makes me happy.
My daughter
Well,
was like
single
4 years
leaders
old.
of the bird world.
She was 4 years old. We were up in San Francisco. I don't know. I think we were at the aquarium or something. We were walking around. She's holding her hot dog, getting ready to take a freaking bite, and the seagull swooped in and took it away from her.
Flew away. It was a happy seagull.
It was a
But,
happy.
I could definitely see that being a terrible form of leadership. Absolutely. Goodness gracious, man.
Got it.
Don't be a
Awful.
seagull. Lisa, you mentioned this earlier, but we didn't touch on it. Micromanaging is a sign that you are a bad leader.
Yes.
Excessive supervision.
It's not trusting,
Always
right?
being over the shoulder of the person who's working under you.
Mhm.
Yeah. I never like that. I never liked it when somebody did it with me. I don't like anybody over my shoulder. Even my own husband will stand over my shoulder and start watching me do things. I'm like, no, you can't do that. It just feels so, no.
Which it's hard to break the mindset sometimes if you've worked jobs where it's like, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. Like, there are some places where to have that mindset is to survive.
I will say, like, this is the opposite of the seagull, right? Like
Yes.
the seagull's, shitting on you, pardon my friend, stealing your lunch, and then piecing out, leaving you with the mess, and the team with the mess figure it out. Like, not in the trenches with you at all. Like, the opposite of in the trenches. And
What is the opposite of a
micromanager-
seagull?
I know what it is.
In there the whole time, right? What?
We used to call it helicoptering. So you would kind of like swoop around, see what needs to be handled, and then you would land and you would take care of business, and then you would go back out, swoop around, see what needs to be handled.
We're like a fly, like, I don't know. Flies are very helpful.
So the opposite of a seagull is a helicopter. We've
As a
established that.
helicopter,
Yes.
Yeah.
As either one of them,
Context.
I'm not sure.
But they're both flying.
Yeah.
One's flying in and out, the other one's flying around.
Yeah.
I think the opposite of a seagull is like a herding dog, like a dog that is meant to be in a big space.
Yeah, okay.
It's supposed to be
a
like
little
herding cattle that it has supposed to have all this job, but it's trapped in a small space.
That's
So now it is like nipping at your heels. It's jumping on you. It's bored. It's like, what you doing? And it just needs to be out. Herding sheep.
I think it also micromanaging also shows that you don't have better things to do with your time.
Yes.
For
It's just-
real.
Being up in your business, up your butt crack, just not doing anything important other than just harassing whoever it is you're harassing.
It also shows that like you don't trust people. Like it's a big giant sign
Yeah, like
saying,
what Lisa said.
I don't trust you, and what you're, at least that's what it feels like. And really, I mean, it is what it is. Like anybody who's a micromanager is going to tell you, well, why are you there? What purpose is that serving you? Well, I'm there because it has to, if I have to be there for it to get done right. I have to be there for it. Well, right there, why don't you trust your team? Well, that's like, if I'm in a coaching space with somebody that's a micromanager, my first question is going to be, why are you doing that? What is that? What are you getting from that?
Mhm.
What is the
Or
purpose of that?
Why don't you trust?
Why do you feel like you have to do that?
Why do you believe that your way is the only right way?
Yeah.
Why
What
do
makes
you-
that the best option?
Oh, and then I've had that conversation though with people. They go, "Well, I can't trust my team. I can't trust them to get it done." Okay, so you can't trust your team. Why is that your team? Like,
Correct.
who did you choose on your team? Who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of who your team is? Like, well, I am. Oh, okay. And it just sort of goes from there.
But for those who aren't, because not every leader is going to have the choice of who's going to be on their team. There are higher up that say that. It's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to continue to live in a space of distrust, Or are you going to start taking that first step in cultivating a relationship so that trust can happen? It's like you got a choice at the end of the day. You got just find your freaking choice.
So I can apply this to coaching. We can apply this to coaching. We can also apply this, say that all leaders can benefit from coaching.
Oh
But
my
danger.
gosh.
We can he's purring, by the way.
Oh my
Danger.
gosh.
We can also
He's no
apply this to coaches who don't trust that their clients know what to do, who feel the need to give advice.
Yes.
You know,
Why don't you trust your clients?
They're the life coach, they're certified, and they have just been gifted with the divine wisdom to tell people what to do. It's like because in a world where you can consult the oracle that is Google, the life coach has the ultimate answer, right?
Right. In a world filled with AI, you know all.
It's like that's something I tell in coaching 101 classes. Like, there's nothing you can tell your clients that they probably haven't read on the internet or heard from someone that has a bigger name. So if you're just going to go into this to give them a whole bunch of theories that they're not even going to use, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
It's not about telling them. It's about empowering them to stand on their own 2 feet, maybe for the very first time in their lives. Give themselves the same validation, if not more, than they give to the Tony Robbins and the T. Harv Ekers and the Eckhart Tolles and
we're not throwing names.
Huh?
I said we don't drop names.
I'm throwing shade on all of them.
I'm not throwing shade.
That was a compliment.
I'm not saying, hey, follow these people or don't follow these people, but these are just universally recognized self-help practitioners that sometimes we want to be the second coming of, whether we realize it or not.
I'm saying don't follow them.
They're all grifters. Don't listen to them. I'm just kidding.
But
the idea of thinking that you have all of the answers is a definite mistake. If somebody's coming to you for coaching and your only concern is to tell them what you think, they've got a whole line of family members and friends that are happy to do it for free.
Yeah,
why should they pay you for your opinion? Right? It's not about you. It's about your value to a client is not about your opinion.
Don't micromanage your clients, people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I trust them. And this, so again, we keep saying all of these things can be applied into a coach in the coaching space as well. And that's really all of this. So if, even since we're going to answer that, well, if I'm a coach, then what do? You empower them. You also create a space where they can explore the motivation, explore the why they've been doing things the way they've been doing things. You know what I mean? And it's now we say we don't do the why, but it's this like I keep hitting this wall. But it's learning that emotional.
Yeah.
Hey, but that's because this is going on. Shoot. Okay. Cool. I can do this now. This is why, and it becomes a forward-moving process, and I love it. Anyway.
Yeah. Brooke, can I ask a question? I love what you just said as far as like how to build that trust with your client. For the sake of our viewers, what kind of internal work would you say a coach has to do in order to effectively empower their clients? Because we hear that stuff, we hear that all the time, but it's like, I don't know that people talk about it enough. Like, what internal work can the coach do to empower their clients in the way that you've eloquently put?
I honestly, I think the big step is to get excited about what coaching is. Like, to let go of this concept of like, oh, I'm going to give advice. I'm going to be the answer. I'm going to be the solution. I am the solution. Like, kick that out the door and instead go, I'm going to be an awesome coach. I'm going to learn how to effectively coach in what coaching is, and I'm going to do it in the best way possible for me. Like, I'm going to find the way to be the best possible coach. And what does that entail? Getting excited about all of the things that coaching is and all of the possibility that coaching gives, and wanting to become the best space holder for yourself, right? But whatever that is for you, apply to you. I want to be an awesome space holder for me. I want to be a coach that knows how to tap into feelings. I want to be and start to just get like super excited about all of the things that coaching is, instead of getting tripped up on all of the things it is not. And that's where the work I would do as a coach is be like, wait, I'm a coach. This is what coaching is. I'm going to embody a coach. And I'm not only going to embody it, but I'm going to get passionate about it and excited about it and find ways to do it that I can do, that are specific to me, that I can give to my clients, and bring that kind of excitement and energy to coaching, not to what coaching is not. And that's
can I follow that with what you can do to actually get that excitement and get all what you just said? And that is to receive coaching and experience that yourself. Literally, the reason why I am so jacked up about coaching all the time is because it was amazing for me. It was transformative for me. I had an amazing experience being coached. I wanted to coach others because of that. And if you haven't had that experience for yourself and you felt what it feels like to not be given advice and to have someone continue to turn you towards yourself for the answers, no one had ever done that for me before. Literally, I had done tons of different modalities for help and healing, and coaching finally turned me towards myself. And that was huge. And once I saw how powerful that was for me, I saw, oh my God, I have got to give this back to other people. So if you want that fire, get coached yourself. See what it's like yourself. That's what I say. Be the follower before you're the leader.
and realize your value is more than your advice. You have value to provide all of those things that both Brooke and Jen said. I can't find your names. Definitely, you are valuable to be that space for the client. So yes, beautifully said.
And also, I mean, a big part, once you know what coaching is and is not, it becomes so much easier to be a client. It becomes so much easier to be a coach. And like, you've got to embrace it. You can't, if you fight it, it's going to be a fight the whole way. So like, instead of fighting it, like, embrace what coaching is and start to see the possibility it presents, because it really does. And I think Jen and I are so passionate about it because we are two people who coach and two people who are coached. And I love seeing both sides. I love seeing my clients grow. I love seeing them have, you know, moments that are transformative for them, that are meaningful to them. And that to me is so cool. And in a way, it's not connected to advice I gave in any way, shape, and or form. So yeah.
Full ownership. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that will wrap up today's CLCI Live on bad leadership.
We started off on bad leadership and then talk about how to make good coaching. I love this company, man. I love it.
What a spin. Yeah.
The bait and switch.
It was a bit. But it's true though. I mean, honestly though, all those things, we can take that and apply it both ways. I really do feel like a good leader is also capable of being a good coach. I feel like there is a reason a lot of organizations are sending people through our school. Yes. And that's because they want their leaders to be coaches and to know how to coach and learn the value in coaching. So anyways, we're done now. Off the soapbox.
You're from New York with that one. She said,
you guys sign off. Somebody else sign off.
Who want to do it? Oh, okay. I guess I'll sign off. All right. So this has been our Tuesday CLCI Live. Join us. If you liked what you heard, join us for a class. We certify our coaches in 3 days using online intensive format, and we're ICF accredited, so you know you're getting good stuff. Go ahead and follow the links attached to this video for more information.
Okay. See you guys.